The free shuttle bus service, a pilot project introduced in Marine Parade GRC, McPherson, and Mountbatten, is presented as a way to help residents, particularly seniors, navigate their neighborhoods more easily, with an annual cost of approximately 1 million Singapore dollars, partially supported by the Southeast Community Development Council. However, a closer look at the details surrounding its funding and usage raises questions about whether its true purpose is more about political advertising than community service. One significant question that has emerged is why the buses, meant to serve as public transport, prominently feature caricatures of the ruling People's Action Party MPs alongside local landmarks from Marine Parade GRC. Gerald Guillaume, Workers' Party Member of Parliament for Aljunia GRC, raised concerns about these depictions in Parliament on 7 August, questioning why a public service, which the government should provide, is being used to promote PAPMPs. He asked, why are the grassroots advisors who are also People's Action Party members of Parliament fronting this service, for example, having their caricatures painted on the side of the buses, and an article published in the patir.sg website, when public transport is something that should be provided by the government through LTA and its public transport operators to all residents of Singapore? In response, Minister of State for Culture, Community and Youth Alvin Tan explained, the short answer is that there are pictures of other Marine Parade landmarks, including Wisma Gelong Serai Market and Old Airport Road Hawker Centre. These all help residents who would have familiarity with these landmarks and people who are familiar to them to identify the buses. This was also mentioned by Mr. Edwin Tong Chin Fai, Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and an MP of Marine Parade GRC, who stated in a written reply that this is not dissimilar to other grassroots programs which have banners of the grassroots advisors hosting the programs. Former Workers' Party non-constituency Member of Parliament Yi Zhenjiang sarcastically questioned the appropriateness of these images in a Facebook post, asking, I can understand how buildings can be landmarks. Are faces landmarks too? Mr. Tan also mentioned that over 10,000 residents have registered for the shuttle service, with more than 40% being seniors aged 65 and above. However, Mr. Yi pointed out the apparent low usage of the service, estimating that only about 3 to 4 passengers are on each bus trip. He questioned whether spending 1 million Singapore dollars on such a limited service is justifiable, especially when it seems to benefit only a small fraction of the residents. Former nominated Member of Parliament Anthea has also publicly shared her observations of the shuttle buses being nearly empty on multiple occasions. On Sunday, she posted a photo of an entirely empty bus, questioning the efficacy and necessity of the service. She emphasized the need for clear performance management and accountability measures, noting that if the service is not fulfilling its intended purpose, it should be reconsidered or terminated. A volunteer from the Online Citizen visited the site and reported similar findings, noting that the buses often appeared empty or poorly occupied. The funding arrangement for the shuttle service is also unclear. Mr. Tan explained in Parliament that the CDC provided a one-off seed grant of 200,000 Singapore dollars to kickstart the project. The remaining 80% of the total cost comes from donations collected by the CDC and grassroots organizations, matched by government grants. If the 80% funding is true, as described by Mr. Tan, it suggests that 60% of the funds came from the CDC, raising significant questions about transparency and accountability, particularly concerning the exact amount of public funds involved and how they are justified for what seems to be an underutilized service. This situation of the underutilized shuttle service and the use of donations along with public funding also raises potential legal and ethical concerns regarding election campaigning. Under Singapore's Parliamentary Election Act, the display of posters and banners for political candidates must be authorized and regulated. On top of that, expenses for such advertising must be declared under the Act and be counted in the limit for the campaign budget. Yet, these buses, adorned with images of PAPMPs, continue to operate, essentially serving as moving billboards. This raises the question, Will these buses be taken off the road during the election period, or will they continue to operate under the guise of a public service, giving the PAP an unfair advantage? Furthermore, according to the electoral records from the Elections Department, the GRC and 2 SMCs have a combined total of 191,641 electors. Based on the allowed budget of 4 Singapore dollars per elector, they can collectively spend up to 766,564 Singapore dollars on their campaign. The 1 million Singapore dollars shuttle bus service already exceeds this budget, not to mention that the campaign, which, to any ordinary member of the public, appears to have started before the close of nominations, which has yet to be determined. Even more telling is that the shuttle buses are designed to only travel within the specific wards of Marine Parade, GRC, Macpherson, and Mountbatten, without venturing outside of these areas. This limitation makes the service less useful for residents who may need to travel beyond these boundaries. The routes seem to go in circles within the town, offering little practical benefit for those who need to go further. This raises the suspicion that the shuttle service is more about keeping the PAP's presence visible in the community, much like a political campaign ad that repetitively targets the same audience, rather than providing a meaningful transportation service. Given the substantial cost and questionable usage of the Marine Parade shuttle bus service, it's essential to scrutinize its real purpose. Is it truly about helping residents, or is it a thinly veiled attempt to keep the PAP's image front and center in the community, conveniently ahead of the next election? A telling sign will be if the upcoming election occurs while the shuttle bus service is still operational, only for the project to be quietly cancelled afterwards due to financial non-viability. Such a scenario would strongly suggest that the service was, in reality, a political ad disguised as a public service, conveniently exempt from the election budget allocated to candidates.